Carney's answer to everything is just tossing more money at it. And guys, this doesn't bode well for us. I mean, Alberta's doing well despite Canada, not because of it. And so Saskatchewan's doing pretty good too. Alberta's surpassing the rest of the country in most economic measures. Even though oil prices have been tumultuous, Alberta's economy is going strong. Unemployment's below the national average. Our provincial government posted a surplus of over $8 billion. And new housing units even created will reach a record high of nearly 60,000 this year. Having a low tax rate and a welcoming business environment has diversified the local economy, and it's paying off. Now, by comparison, Canada's economic outlook is a basket case. Under Carney's brilliant guidance, the deficit went from $62 billion from when he was elected to a staggering $92 billion and growing. Carney's spending spree is making his predecessor, Justin Trudeau, look like a cheapskate. We're just paying the interest on the current national debt costs as much as the government brings in every year on the GST. That's as much as the federal government sends out in annual health care transfers to the provinces. It gets worse, though. Carney's fiscal irresponsibility is sure to lead to a credit downgrade for the federal government soon. And that means interest rates will rise on the federal debt as the balance grows by nearly $100 billion a year. Look, Canada's swirling into a debt catastrophe, and Carney's showing no indication of trying to stop it. Carney was sold to Canadians in the last election as some sort of economic and diplomatic wizard. Well, so far, his economic ineptitude is only being overshadowed by his utter failure to get a deal with Canada's largest trading partner done. And now rising tariffs are devastating some Canadian industries. The elbows up approach has been a total failure. Not to be outdone by the federal government, though, Doug Ford's bumbling management of Ontario has put the province into have-not status, and they rely on equalization payments to pay their bills. Ford jumped into bed with Justin Trudeau on subsidy sinkholes such as battery plants that never began construction and edible cricket factories that went broke. The unemployment rate in Ontario is nearly 8%, while the cost of living continues to rise. Despite having 3 times Alberta's population, Ontario only managed to build the same number of housing units in 1 year. Too much government has made increasing housing at a sustainable rate impossible. Mass immigration, though, it continues to pressure the country while billions are spent to house refugees in hotels. The influx has contributed to a near collapse of healthcare systems in every province. And despite constant spending increases, it's just not getting better. And of course, then there's the Maritimes. They remain in perpetual state of dependency, while unemployment in Newfoundland sits at 10% with no relief on the horizon. Canada prefers to subsidize people to stay in the regions without resources rather than move the people to the regions that need the labor. And they bring in more mass immigration to fill the labor needs in other areas. It's a recipe for national population imbalance. And then, of course, let's look at Quebec. Well, Quebec's in it for Quebec. They control the national agenda and keeping terrible policies with everything from supply management to imposed bilingualism upon the West. And they'll happily hinder Western economic development while sucking in billions in equalization payments and other bribes. Manitoba and BC, they both elected socialist governments which are opposing pipeline development, stunting their own economies. BC is likely going to join the majority of Canada as a have-not province and begin collecting welfare through equalization soon, too. That just leaves Alberta and Saskatchewan to pay the nation's bills, guys. Rest assured, being the national sugar daddies won't earn the prairie provinces gratitude or respect. Alberta and Saskatchewan will get nothing but contempt and ire from the Canadian power brokers. Rather than emulate Alberta's success, they'll strive to tear the provinces down, prairie provinces, to their economic level and social failure. Canada's laurentian a leader driven by ideology and entitlement. They'd rather sink the nation than admit their ideology is one of failure. Alberta and Saskatchewan's success has painted a target on their backs. The Liberals have nothing to lose in enraging prairie voters, and they see the accumulating wealth of the West as a plum to be harvested for the East, rather than an asset earned by Westerners, which must be kept by Westerners. Premiers Moe and Smith both recognize this threat. That's why legislation like the Sovereignty Act was created. And while the provincial governments aren't overtly supporting independence, they aren't hindering independence movements from growing and pursuing a referendum either. The West has to prepare for another economic assault from the Eastern Canada. It's going to happen. It'll be the last gasp from a central government going broke. Alberta and Saskatchewan can't save Canada. We can save ourselves, though, through pursuing independence rather than letting misguided federalists pull us into economic insolvency with the rest of the nation. So watch it, guys. Strap in. It's coming. They're going broke, and we're sitting with a full wallet. You know they can't leave it that way for much longer.